"Hi, Wick," chirped the cricket. "Yes, my telescope was just my looking at some Hubble photos on the internet. The internet's data, as well as all libraries and books, are an extension of my mind." Interesting, that mind and knowledge are not merely of the internal. Yes, I can't keep everything in my internal memory, so I often dip into the vast external memory and knowledge. It's another storage medium that supplements the brain. So, what's new? Well, not New York, for that is old now. What's old then? Ptolemic type ideas such as that the sun and the other planets revolved around the Earth. Yes, they had to do quite a reversal on that one. Such too as your reversal of light to be no longer moving. This reversal approach is a good way to produce and examine new ideas. What other ways are there? Well, one can take two separate thoughts and combine them into a new thought, such as the quantum realm plus that of classical biology could be the secret of life, the elan vital. You read that in another thread on ToeQuest. Like I say, my little cricket brain plus the world's knowledge is what I am, for that is what I amount to in the end result of my actions. Scene script. Why are you wearing a red plaid shirt with green striped pants? We don't have color vision, no need to evolve it. But you can see patterns, plaid with stripes. I got dressed in the dark. We come out after the fireflies have gone to bed. Ah, you only work the night shift, sorry to hear that. Yes, it's tough work, but it's only for 3 seasons and the summer nights are rather short. Well, that's not a bad job. What does Katie did it mean that you all seem to say? I shouldn't really gossip, so I won't. And towards the end of autumn I only hear we are so cold and shivering that that's all we can say. What other reversals might we make? Well, to continue the Ptolemic one a bit deeper, why was it that they all wanted Earth to be the center of not just the solar system, but also of the universe? They saw themselves from only their one point of view. Yes, and while we are presumably rare, the universe is a big place and is mostly of stuff that is not us. Mammals and, insects and all life are not the center and purpose of the universe. Well, we don't know, but that's what comes out of the reversal. Of course, not all reversals are appropriate. However, in considering the species, we are not really the kings of the earth either. Nor were the dinosaurs.
What was is. Bacteria, for we need them, but they don't need us. And they were among the first and foremost of life. We would die in 2 minutes without them. Plus, they labored for 2 billion years to make most of the oxygen in the atmosphere, as well as many of the carbohydrates. They do seem so important as well as long-lived. Some of them are rather indestructible. They can even gorge on plutonium, the deadliest substance ever known. Yikes! So, what are you working on now? A quantum computer, for then I can follow all paths at once. That could be how the brain works. I know, but my brain is small and I need help, for the internet is too large for me to sort out all the baloney. Good luck! Not so loud, you may disrupt the quantum state. Okay. Wick weighed what the cricket seemed to be saying, then decided to alter course a bit. Perhaps the universe isn't about anything living. I mean, why should we assume that bacteria or any organism is king? I am of the opinion that law is king. I mean, think about it. We are sitting here on a rock warmed by a sun, and that sun is a few billion years old. But neither you or I matter at all to the rock or the sun. We are simply come to this point of the universe at this time to sit here and talk. But were it not for specific laws, the existing rules of order that established the sun which warmed the rock, the moon which now brings us light, the cress in the nearby stream, you and I would likely not be having this conversation. If we are here talking together, we are here because the law has brought us here. The question I'm trying to understand is this: is free will sustained by universal law, or is it only a ruse, an imaginary prison that puts on the pretty face of liberty while holding all in chains? If the free will is a legal status in this universe, then it must be at least partially indeterminate. If free will is not a legal status, then determinism is the law, and all of us stand at the beck and whim of space-time. The cricket thought for a moment, trying to re-establish the quantum state Wick had disrupted with his outburst, then asked, "Does this mean that you can imagine a universe in which there are no humans or thinking beings?" "Oh yes."
Then you are not of the opinion that God created this universe for the express pleasure of man? I don't currently find that particular question interesting, but if God did create the universe, I'm interested in knowing whether he created a universe of freedom or a universe of constraint. Perhaps I even wonder if God was free to create the universe, or was that creation a universal imperative? I would ask the same question even if there was no God. In other words, assuming there is no God, is the universe required to look in an already determined way tomorrow? Does that predetermined configuration of the universe already exist, or will that configuration be a universal surprise? I like to think it won't be too surprising. Why? Because I want the sun to rise soon. I'm getting cold, and if the universe were to reconfigure in a surprising way, tomorrow there might be no sun. That's not the kind of surprise I mean. I'm talking about the little things, whether the sunrise will be orange and magenta, or whether it will be all shot through with gold, or whether it will be a snowy, sun-obscured day. I trust there can be a supreme law without necessarily implying constraint. Children play soccer, for instance, in accordance with a set of rules, and the rules maintain order in the game, but the rules do not determine the direction the ball goes at every moment of the game. The rules are a framework within which the game flows, but the game flows nonetheless. The rules do not make the game determine it. If they did, no one would play. No one would watch. Am I making sense, Cricket?
The mare stepped through the portal with caution, time and space having moved since her last visit. She looked above her, at the placement of the moon and stars. This appeared to be the correct locale. She had yet to discern the cricket and Wick, and wondered if they lingered still. She slowed her breath and listened, reluctant to leave herself vulnerable by using her talent of mind-touching, alone as she was at present. Ah yes, they were in discourse by yonder stream near the big rock. The mare approached on silent hooves, taking in the new course of the conversation and making her appearance just as Wick inquired, "Am I making sense, Cricket?" Sensing her approach, Wick intoned, "Greetings, Caramel. That is your name, is it not? Why are you come alone?" "My companion is on our resident timeline taking her rest. She believes me to be in the stable yard with the others, enjoying our hay and resting likewise. Might I interpose that there is both constraint and freedom? There are the constraints of the certain natural laws that you are only just beginning to comprehend your relationship to and within. Still, there is much freedom of choice, many which are available to each being or form." The mare spoke English quite plainly in a low and slightly husky tone, "And while we are at it, perhaps you might enlighten me why the concept of a teleporting equine is any harder to accept than a pub-crawling multilinguist cricket," she added as she settled into a more comfortable stance, resting her hind leg. Wick almost felt that the mare was testing him. This was quite irregular. "Come, cold cricket," suggested the mare. "Jump up on my back and warm yourself. If I must leave for any reason, I shall give you sufficient notice of my departure." Now, where were we? "Hi, Crick," said Wick. "Did I wake you?" "No, I'm just having trouble getting up from this heavy bed gravity." "Well, you're counteracting the gravity of the entire Earth to get up out of bed." "Hey, yeah, I'm pretty strong, aren't I?" "Yes, in a way, but you did get up rather easily, and so perhaps gravity is rather feeble." Oh well, maybe it is that matter is very lightweight compared to how big it looks since all is mostly empty space. Thus, gravity doesn't have to be so powerful. True, a lucky thing for us, I guess, plus some entities are massless anyway. Is there some extra bed gravity that makes it really hard to get up on some days? No, that's just a way of putting that it's hard to move when one is still groggy. I have to pick out some shirts to wear. Can you shine your flashlight so I can get a better look? Sure, I'm pointing it to your collection of shirts. Okay, let's see. Oh, not that one. Just wore this one. Oh, there's a spot on this one. Oh, wore a similar color yesterday. Here's some good ones all about the same. I'll just close my eyes and pick one. Doesn't matter which. What was that all about? Oh, that's all that a part of my nonverbal side of my brain could get out. It means no. It didn't really tell me the details. I'm just saving that shirt for Halloween, I suppose, or I'd throw it in the trash. Did you use free will to pick out a shirt then? No, but I used free choice from what I know and from what shirts were available. One cannot will that which does the willing. How come? The will happens subconsciously during brain analysis that we are not privy to. Not privy? Well, it's just that the result is not available until the brain completes its analysis, that's all. But when it's mostly done, it gives us a peek at the result. We can still veto it, using a higher brain, if we have one, and we pause to use it. This is called free won't. So, perhaps a lesser simpleton brain area says to do something, and so this surfaces on the mind and consciousness as usual, but then some kind of global review says nope? Something like that. But isn't this of two things still determined by your brain and not really free will? Yes, but it makes us think that our will is free. Can we predict the outcome of a soccer game? Maybe in theory, but in practice there would be 10**100000 calculations, so we can never know the future. Life would be totally boring if we could know all of the outcomes. What if we videotaped the Super Bowl, learned the score somehow, and then watched it later? That's different. Plus, knowing the outcome might take some of the excitement out of it.
So, what is the light that we see? It's the visible part of the wide electromagnetic spectrum. The non-visible contains X-rays, ultraviolet, and all that other great stuff that gets used for something. How do electromagnetic waves get someplace? They are a self-renewing disturbance of electrical begetting, magnetic begetting electrical. This discovery doomed the required ether medium, but ironically, electromagnetic waves are a kind of ether in themselves. How do you know so much? I Google. There's a lot of junk out on the internet. I know, so I just use stuff that has been proved. For example, although quantum mechanics sounds weird and counterintuitive, they've used its principles to manufacture stuff that works great, so I believe in it. What are you doing tonight? I have some interviews with some blind dates. Will that a first impression thing guide you? Yes, I hope so. You know, Cricket, sometimes we take the most obvious things for granted. Take the horse you've been sleeping on. Here you and I have been talking, and we have left poor Caramel out of the whole exchange. I'd be interested, Caramel, in what you have to say, but I must say that what you think you did and what you did seem completely different to the two of us. For instance, you thought you went through a time portal, but what I saw was you galloping, and a mite slower than you thought, over the hill. There was no portal, no vanishing act, and your rider, I think, is lying asleep beneath one of the aspens over there. I still hold that time is not a navigable medium. People might think it is, they might convince themselves it is, but time is none of that. Caramel looked a bit taken aback. You have no idea what you're talking about. I maneuver my way through time as a matter of course. It's what I do.
Come with me, Caramel. Let me show you what I mean. Wick jumped from the rock and made his way along the stream to the stand of aspens with Caramel behind him, and the cricket riding on the mare's back. The leaves trembled on the dawning air, which shimmered with a silvery mist. Wick carefully laced his way through tall nettles and several clumps of leathery-looking mushrooms until he finally found what he was looking for. There in the grass lay the rider, sleeping in a bed of dewy grass, breathing deep and steady. "You see, Caramel, I watched the whole thing. You were here all the time. You never left us. Now, I'm not saying that you're an untruthful horse. I'm only saying that what you perceive and what I perceive are different things. To date, I have never seen a time traveler. I doubt I ever will. I don't think the universe permits such motion. By the way, Cricket, most scientists describe light as anything that moves at the so-called speed of light. That includes all electromagnetic effects: radio, microwave, infrared, visible, ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma ray. They are all light. They all travel at the velocities. What's more, there are many animals which see beyond the visible spectrum. Snakes, for instance, see in the infrared spectrum, and certain birds see in the ultraviolet spectrum. You are another example. Visible light for you includes primarily the spectrum of green and ultraviolet. Most other kinds of light are not well understood by you, which is partly why you're having so much trouble with your clothes. Talking about light as if it were only that light in the visible spectrum is very misleading. We classify a phenomenon as light because of its behavior, not because of how it is perceived by various species. The peculiar behavior of all light has to do with the way it moves. Light moves through space at the assumed velocities in relation to all other things.
What's more, you should not deceive yourself into thinking we know what light is. We don't. We do a pretty good job describing its behavior in terms of motion, speed, mass, neutrality, etc. But that is like describing a man by his motion, speed, mass, and neutrality. We can have done that and still fail to understand what the man is. We know almost nothing about what light really is. If anyone tells you otherwise, he has allowed arrogance to blind him to his blindness. Visible light is the rainbow that a species can detect among all the other frequencies, said Crick. Other frequencies may be detected too, but don't show up as visual. Yes, we both have a motion detector that lets us duck out of the way of things like a diving bird, but in crickets this is an even better one, as it has to be. How few photons can we see? Humans can even make something out of about 3, 5 photons. Why is the speed of light the constants? That's how fast protons spin, so that's the speed that photons are thrown off at. How were your blind dates? Did you have to go out with them as soon as you met them? No, they were actually blind and could not see. Is this okay? Of course I am fair to all, but I must say that they will never be able to see the messes that I might make around the house. And so they couldn't nag you to clean up, but they could feel around for the messes and then ask you to tidy up. Well, I told them that I was deaf. You wouldn't do that, and neither would Austin. I know, but this is just a story. You do know about how many marriages don't work out. Sure. Well, this would be the perfect marriage, since I couldn't hear what she says to do, and she would mostly not know about my messes. Not to mention that she could hear you and then have to take all direction from you. Oh, Crick. You're right. I'll tell her the truth and we'll make it work. I'll be neat and we'll converse both ways. So, enough about her. No, she is a wow. And I told her that I'm handsome. And Wick thought for a moment and then asked, does she know you can only see in green and ultraviolet? She's going to have to wear crazy makeup. By the way, that thing about spinning protons casting off light, you made that up. Point particles don't spin in the way you mean, and we have no way of detecting how fast they spin. And the electromagnetic reaction is mostly a reaction between photons and electrons, and the only thing protons are thought to cast off is gluons. And this whole description The standard model of particle physics is only barely different than your blind dates trying to find your messes. And.
Wick looked at Caramel. She was standing, but she was fast asleep. And he wondered if cow tipping would work with a horse. Caramel flicked an ear at Wick without opening her eyes. Cows generally don't sleep standing up, and they are quite difficult to sneak up on, making that rather a moo point, dear fellow. Besides which, the mare continued, attempting to push a horse off its feet unless the animal is tranquilized would be considered an act of aggression and a breach of the human-horse protocol, agreed to when my kind first came to the assistance of your species. Cricket made a high-pitched squeak, chortling in cricketese. I'll ignore your earlier remarks, Wick, and point out only that yon rider sleeping neath the aspens is a construct of your mind, what you expect to see as you recall her. Your memory of her is not entirely accurate, and there are many inconsistencies. As for my departing speed, it was quite accurate. I have participated in barrel racing and been clocked. Objects viewed from a departing angle are quite hard to determine the speed thereof, enough said. Not that I think you are an untruthful human, merely that your theories do not remain constant when you start adding an extra dimension or few. Now, in regards to your friend the cricket, the wardrobe-challenged one has been using the plaids and stripes gig to distract you from the fact that he has been traveling between venues during the whole of your conversation. He is very quick and likely counting on the fact that individuals among his species look quite similar, and that with the wardrobe as a constant, even one as astute as yourself might not notice. These minor differences aside, I find both yourself and the multi-dimensional cricket quite good company, so let us continue in this vein. I'm not here to question anything, merely to observe and enjoy. By the way, the alfalfa and cress were very thoughtful. And here's an inside tip. My companion, when next I bring her, likes Australian Shiraz or a good Cabernet. Does yonder pub have an off-sales policy? Pull that out of your hat and you'll have her thinking you're a mind reader. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll continue my rest. Although horses appear to be sound asleep, we can only achieve REM sleep when we are laying down, and we seldom lay flat unless we feel secure, with one of our kind or a trusted species acting as sentinel. So no more thoughts of cow tipping, Wick agreed.